Luke, first and foremost, the decision. You did have to sit in this for quite some time. You had terrific, I suppose, encouragement by both the result and the players. But why did you come to this decision?
Yeah, it took me a little bit longer than but after Rome to decide on New York. New York was something that seemed very, very appealing to me just because of the challenge of trying to win a home and away. And once we did that and celebrating Sunday night, I thought that was probably where my journey as captain would finish. But I did have a lot of backing from the players, ultimately my family as well, and then once the dust had settled, just to think about the opportunity of doing it a third time, having that opportunity for one, and obviously doing it in Adare, in Ireland, the 100th anniversary. There's something really, really appealing about that, and obviously, ultimately, to have the backing of the players meant a lot to me.
Before we get into the history and the possibilities of what could happen in Adare Manor next year, the players, the way they backed you after 2023, you almost had no choice but to go to New York because it was such a clamor. On this occasion, what was the support like from the players to go for a third Ryder Cup as captain?
Yeah, it's been massive. I think everyone has welcomed it. I messaged the players last night to let them know I was coming back again, and it was a great response. So, I feel very, very fortunate to have their backing, and obviously I wouldn't be sitting here without that. And I think this Ryder Cup as a player, as a captain, as a vice captain has given me so much, and to go once more again is going to be very special.
Adare Manor as a venue, obviously, it's very special to us. The K Club in 2006 was the first occasion the Ryder Cup was staged in Ireland. You were part of that team as a player. There's nice symmetry to this, isn't there? In a way, did that play any part?
It was something I was discussing with my wife and my agent, Brendan Taylor, a few weeks ago, just kind of trying to weigh up the pros and cons once I really did sit down and heavily consider doing it for a third time. And the fact that it was in Ireland, in Adare, was a big factor. I got to say, my wife kind of wanted me to do it and painted the picture of the Irish fans, the 100-year anniversary, obviously the support of JP McManus and what he's done in the game of golf. And, that meant a lot to me. And I think that was sort of the conversation where I was thinking, okay, I get it now. This is really, really an amazing opportunity to do something very special.
When the occasion will come, you're going to find a golf course. You probably already have visited Adare Manor, but it's a very American golf course. It's almost like an Augusta clone in the west of Ireland, southwest of Ireland. What do you make of Adare Manor as a venue?
Oh, it's an amazing venue. Obviously, an incredible hotel, the incredible staff, incredible hospitality, and a great golf course. K Club is, you could argue, is an American style golf course as well, and we did fine over there. So obviously I look forward to getting over and seeing the course, and I know they've made a few adjustments over the summer with the grasses. So I look forward to seeing the venue and hopefully setting it up to give us a wee edge if we can. I think that's very hard in today's Ryder Cups with how closely the statistics and the players are in terms of ability, but it's going to be an amazing venue.
Yeah, it is a venue that basically doesn't have any rough, a bit like Augusta. So are you going to grow rough in Adare for the first time? Because it was constructed really for a Ryder Cup bid. It's got the Ryder Cup bid. It's got you as captain now. It's up to you to some degree to decide how it's set up. Are we going to see rough in Adare Manor?
Yeah, we'll have to see. Time will tell. I think it depends a little bit on where the players are, their strengths, what we feel like will give us a slight edge. Typically we do grow rough. Obviously, we were successful in New York as well, playing a course that didn't have hardly any rough. So, again, these are decisions that will be made amongst me and future vice captains once those are selected.
You mentioned your family, and obviously Diane is taking on this, your wife, because the wives play a huge part in the back room. Did you go to her, or was she always behind this third attempt at a European captaincy or a third European captaincy?
She was certainly, even Sunday night of New York, I thought, after a very long and stressful day and we were celebrating, I thought, oh, God, that's great. I've done one home away. I've, that's, it couldn't have gone any better. And she was already thinking, oh, well, maybe we should do a dare. And I was like, I'm not considering that for one moment right now. I'm going to enjoy this moment. But she loved the ability to have some of the control in Rome and set up the ladies' days, to have a big influence in shutting down the Spanish steps in Rome and creating something very, very memorable for the ladies, the families, and everyone involved. And I think she'll have just as much vigor with this one in Ireland, and she's very much looking forward to it.
There's a lot of stress involved. You mentioned that word. So let's attack the fact that Bethpage was a lot of stress, more stress probably than any Ryder Cup captain for Europe has faced, with the onslaught of the American comeback on the final day, with the baying crowd reaching decibel levels and, obscene levels at times. It'll be different, hopefully, in Adare Manor. What's your message going to be to an Irish crowd?
Yeah, again, this was partly the reason why I wanted to do it again. I love what the Irish fans bring. They bring a warmth, a hospitality. They're going to be very passionate, but be very respectful, and that will be my message. We want to play this Ryder Cup in a very classy and respectful way. What the Ryder Cup deserves, and and I know the Irish fans will be able to do that.
What will you bring to this captaincy, possibly things that you've learned from the first two captaincies? Because it brings added pressure, the fact that America have not won on European soil in more than 30 years. So you're going to be, well, however way the bookies decide if you're favourites or not, but there will be an expectation. An expectation brings its own pressure. How are you going to deal with that the three in a row is on, never been achieved before by Europe?
Yeah, I certainly felt that pressure in Rome, coming off the loss in Whistling Straits. I felt more pressure and the expectation, as you said, in Rome than I did in New York. In New York, maybe we weren't as expected to win. We had a good team, but it doesn't happen very often to win away. Obviously, that pressure comes back to me for this one, and I certainly will feel it. We've done very well, but we haven't lost a Ryder Cup at home for 34 years. I think it will be next year, and that's a heavy burden to carry. But again, my process is to deal with it every day as it comes, try and figure out the best plan possible for this guys to have the best opportunity to succeed, and that's always how I've approached it. I've never really thought about the end result. I've tried to enjoy the journey and again, create this culture that these guys can perform at a high level.
One of the things, of course, about a Ryder Cup in Ireland is the hope that we have at least two Irish players on the team. So they're very critical players and have been very critical players in previous Ryder Cups. Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry, I presume you're hoping they make the team. I know you can't start preferring one player over another, but there's a reason on home soil with the home crowd. Not that you'll want for an atmosphere that's pro-European, but Irish players in your team in an Irish Ryder Cup is important, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. They've been great players for me the last two times. They've given so much to the team. They've been great teammates. They've been good partners for each other in New York. So, and they're both playing great golf right now. Obviously, a lot can happen, so we'll have to see. But great to see them continue in their great play, and I hope that continues for the next 16 months.
There is, at the moment, a long way out as we might be, an issue with Jon Rahm and clearly the comments that he made in Hong Kong prior to the live event there this week regarding the dispute that he has. He's the one player who hasn't signed a contract or a release to get back and playing with the DP World Tour, which could affect his qualification for the Ryder Cup. What are your thoughts on that? Because Jon Rahm is a spiritual dynamo in your room and on the course.
Yeah, as you say, we do have time, which is great. I haven't talked to John, and I certainly plan to do that in the near future. John, again, like Rory, like Shane, like all the guys that I've been able to captain, was a great player, great teammate in Rome and in New York, and obviously I'd love for him to be available. A little bit of that is on his shoulders, and He has to do what he thinks is right, but obviously I look forward to having a chat with him and hopefully get him to be available for that Ryder Cup.
Is that a bit of diplomacy within your own team and own scenario that's involved? Because John Rahm cut a bit of a hard edge in what he was saying about the DP World Tour, forcing him to play in 6 events and specifying 2 events that he had to play in. And the tone of his response didn't sound as conciliatory as we would hope for a European team.
Again, I think there's been bumps along the road in Rome, in New York, and there will be with this one, and I think that's the challenge that I have to overcome. But ultimately, yeah, once the team is formed, I think we're very good at coming together, creating a cohesive team and playing for each other. And that's certainly the role that part of my role as captain is to producing that. And nothing will change for this one. That will be one of the priorities of my captaincy, like it was the last 2 times.
You're a very strong pick as European captain. That goes without saying. So the Americans may be looking to pick someone fairly strong as well. Maybe the greatest player of all time, or arguably the greatest player of all time in Tiger Woods, who, as we know here, is a good pal of the owner of Adare Manor, JP McManus. Are you half expecting now, with the announcement of your appointment, that you'll be facing up to Tiger Woods, as you did in the final round of the 2006 PGA Championship in Medina in Chicago?
Yeah, Tiger got the best of me that day, and many other days in our playing days. Tiger obviously one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to ever do it. And we'll see. Again, Tiger's name was floated a couple years ago, and it didn't pan out. So I hate to comment on it, but it doesn't really change my role as captain, whoever my opposing captain is. My role is to figure out what best opportunities and give the edges to our team, and that's what I'll really be focusing on.
Luke, just finally, you're a world #1 player. Did you ever envisage that this part of your career would be as rewarding as it has been so far, and potentially even more so as someone who leads a team of golfers, not a sport that you associate with team bonding and team exaltation? You have maybe had the highs of your career as captain, even though you've been world #1 as a player. Have you ever dwelt on that?
Yeah, I feel extremely blessed and appreciative of the opportunity. Obviously, back in 2022, when I got that opportunity, in strange circumstances, I don't take that for granted. And to obviously turn that into having done that in New York, and now the opportunity again to do it a 3rd time, it's been very rewarding for me. I've said it many times, and it was certainly a factor of why I wanted to do it again. The opportunity, the focus it's given me, the purpose it's given me. That age between sort of mid-40s to 50 before you can play, potentially Champions Tour, is a strange time for a lot of golfers. And I've been blessed to have an opportunity to do something very special, and have some success at it as well. So I don't take it for granted, and to obviously have the opportunity to do it a 3rd time is very, very special.
And just finally, Irish Ryder Cup captains are fairly thick in the ground over the last decade or so, with Paul McGinley, Darren Clarke, and Padraig Harrington. Can we expect your backroom team to have an Irish flavour to it?
It could do. Again, that's something I'll have to think about. I think there's obviously a good possibility Eduardo will be back on the team. He was instrumental, I think, and a lot of the other guys were great too. So we'll see where that takes us. But I've lent on the advice of Paul McGinley over the years. I've talked to Padraig and Darren Clarke, and legends of the game. And for me, it's always about gaining more knowledge, gaining more information, and to have those guys as people that I can call and talk for advice really means a lot, and is a big help.
Well, good luck in the year and a half ahead. I hope the weather plays ball as much as your players play well.
Wasn't great at K Club, was it?
I was about to bring that up, but you brought it up. It was horrific for quite a lot of the 3 days. But the very best of luck in your preparations, and onwards to Adare Manor 2027 in September. Luke Donald, European Ryder Cup captain again. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.